He ripped his pregnant ex-wife's dress at his own wedding. Right there, in front of 300 guests, in front of cameras, in front of
Marcus, please don't go. What about the baby?
Marcus King grabbed Maya Brooks by the arm and tore her clothing apart like she was garbage, like she was nothing. Like 6 months of destroying her life was not enough. He wanted to humiliate her.
We wouldn't want to
He
ruin
wanted
the
to
party.
crush whatever dignity she had left. He
Before
wanted
we
every
continue the
rich, powerful
celebration,
person in that ballroom
there's someone
to
here
see his
tonight I'd like everyone
ex-wife
to
standing there,
acknowledge.
8 months pregnant,
Right over
in
there.
a torn server
over,
uniform,
Marcus. I know
serving
everything.
drinks at the wedding she was
Victoria,
never
wait, I
supposed to
can explain.
survive. But here's the thing about trying to break someone in public. Everyone is watching, and what Maya did next, what she said into that microphone, what she revealed about the man in the $10,000 tuxedo, it did not just ruin his wedding. It destroyed his entire empire. But that was not even the biggest twist. The biggest twist came from the bride herself, and nobody saw it coming. The fabric tore with a sound that silenced 300 people. One moment, Maya Brooks was standing in a ballroom filled with crystal chandeliers and white roses, wearing her simple black server uniform, her pregnant belly pressing against the fabric. The next moment, she felt hands grabbing her dress, felt the material giving way, felt the cool air hit her skin as the seams ripped apart. 300 guests gasped. Phones came up. Cameras flashed. And Marcus King, her ex-husband, stood before her in his $10,000 tuxedo, his hands still gripping the torn fabric, his face twisted with cruel satisfaction. He had wanted to destroy her. He had wanted to crush whatever dignity she had left. But here is the thing about trying to break someone in public. Everyone is watching. And when the person you are trying to destroy does something unexpected, when they do not crumble the way you planned, when they stand up instead of falling apart, well, that changes everything. What Maya did next would make headlines across the country. What she revealed in that moment of humiliation would bring a billionaire to his knees. And what happened after that would prove something Maya had almost forgotten. She was never as broken as he wanted her to believe. But I am getting ahead of myself. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand how Maya Brooks ended up serving drinks at her ex-husband's wedding in the first place. You need to understand the woman she was before, the woman Marcus tried to erase, and the woman who refused to disappear. Let me take you back 6 months before that wedding, before the torn dress, before the viral videos, before everything changed. 6 months earlier, Maya Brooks was not a server. She was a corporate attorney, sharp and successful, working at a mid-sized law firm in Atlanta. She had graduated near the top of her class. She had a reputation for being thorough, strategic, and relentless in negotiations. Partners respected her, clients trusted her, and she was married to Marcus King. Marcus was 35 years old, handsome in that polished, they had photographs well, with perfect teeth and tailored suits and a confidence that filled every room he entered. He was the founder of King Wealth Management, a fintech startup that helped everyday people invest their money through an app. The company was growing fast. Investors were paying attention. Business magazines were starting to write about him with headlines like "The Future of Financial Technology" and "Young, Black, and Breaking Barriers." When Maya met Marcus 5 years earlier, he had been nobody. Just a man with an idea and a dream, working out of a cramped apartment, surviving on ramen noodles and ambition. She had believed in him when no one else did. She had used her legal expertise to structure his company, to review his contracts, to protect his intellectual property. She had worked late nights editing his pitch decks while he slept. She had sacrificed promotions at her own firm because his dream needed more of her time. And she had loved him. God, she had loved him. The problem was that somewhere along the way, Maya's name had gotten lost. Her contributions were never formally documented. The founding papers listed Marcus as the sole creator, the sole visionary. Maya was just his wife, just a woman who happened to be there during the early days. She had not worried about it at the time. They were a team. What was his was hers. That is what marriage meant, right? She did not know that Marcus had already started seeing her differently, that as his success grew, his view of her shrank, that the woman who had built the foundation was starting to look like a liability to the man building the tower. Maya found out she was pregnant on a Tuesday morning in March. She had suspected for a week, but the test confirmed it. 2 pink lines, A baby. Their baby. She sat on the bathroom floor of their beautiful downtown apartment, tears streaming down her face, her heart so full she thought it might burst. This was everything she had wanted. A family with a man she loved. A new chapter in their story. When Marcus came home that evening, Maya had prepared a special dinner. Candles on the table. His favorite wine. She was practically glowing with excitement. "Marcus," she said, "I have something to tell you." He looked at her, and something in his expression was already distant, already calculating. She told him about the baby, and she watched his face change. It was subtle. Most people would not have noticed. But Maya had spent 5 years studying this man, loving this man, learning every micro-expression. She saw the flash of something cold move through his eyes. She saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. She saw him force his smile a half-second too late. "That is wonderful," he said, but his voice was flat. Maya's heart stuttered. "Marcus," she said, "are you not happy?" "Of course I am happy," he replied, but his eyes were somewhere else. His mind was already running calculations she could not see. "I just need some time to process. It is a big change." She told herself he was just surprised. She told herself he needed time. She told herself everything would be fine. For 2 weeks, she kept telling herself that. During those 2 weeks, Marcus became distant. He worked later. He spoke less. He looked at her belly with an expression she could not read. And then, on a Thursday evening, while Maya was cooking dinner, she heard a notification ping from his laptop in the living room. He was in the shower. She would not normally look. She trusted him. But something made her walk over. Something made her glance at the screen. The document was titled Draft Prenup Modification. And as Maya read the first paragraph, her hands began to shake. "This agreement shall protect all assets acquired during separation proceedings. The party of the first part hereby waives all claims to equity in King Wealth Management. In the event of divorce, the party of the second part shall retain sole ownership of all intellectual property and business interests." He was preparing to leave her. The pregnancy had not been a blessing to him. It had been a deadline, a reason to accelerate his exit plan. Maya stood there, her hand on her belly, reading the document that would erase 5 years of her contributions, 5 years of sacrifice, 5 years of building something together. The shower turned off. She heard his footsteps approaching, and Maya made a decision. She would confront him. She would fight for her marriage, for her family, for everything they had built. She did not know that the fight was already over. She did not know that Marcus had already decided who he was going to be. She did not know that in trying to save her marriage, she was about to lose everything. But she would find it again. All of it and more. She just did not know that yet. The confrontation happened that same night. Maya was standing in the living room when Marcus came out of the bathroom, a towel around his waist, steam still rising from his shoulders. He saw her standing near his laptop, and his expression flickered. "What are you doing?" he asked. Maya turned to face him. Her hands were trembling, but her voice was steady. "I saw the document, Marcus. The prenup modification. You are planning to divorce me." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Marcus did not deny it. He did not apologize. He did not even look ashamed. Instead, he walked to the closet and began pulling out clothes. His movements were calm, methodical, like he had rehearsed this moment. "I was going to tell you this weekend," he said, "but since you already know, we might as well do this now." "Do what?" Maya asked. Her voice cracked on the words. Marcus pulled on a shirt and turned to face her. When he spoke, his voice was cold, clinical, like he was terminating a business contract, not a marriage. "Maya, you were useful, I will give you that. When I was starting out, I needed someone who believed in me, someone who could help with the legal stuff, the paperwork, all of that. And you did, but that phase is over now." "Useful?" Maya repeated. Her hand went to her belly. "Marcus, I am pregnant with your child." He sighed like she was being dramatic. "Yes, and that is a problem. I am building something bigger than you can understand. I have investors watching me, media watching me. I need a wife who fits the image, someone who comes from the right background, someone who photographs well at charity events, someone who does not remind everyone that I started from nothing." He paused, and when he spoke again, His words cut like razors. You are starter wife material, Maya. You were practice. And now I need to move on. The cruelty of it took her breath away. 5 years of her life, 5 years of sacrifice and love and building and believing. And he was dismissing all of it as practice. What about the baby? She whispered. Marcus shrugged. That is your choice. I will give you $50,000 to go quietly. Sign over any claims to the company, and we can part ways like adults. $50,000. For 5 years. For a baby. For everything she had given him. No, Maya said, I am not signing anything. This is your child, Marcus. You cannot just walk away. His eyes went cold. Watch me. He left that night, took a suitcase, took his laptop, took the life they had built together, and walked out the door without looking back. Maya stood in the empty apartment, hand on her belly, and felt her world collapse. But the leaving was only the beginning. What came next was worse. Over the following weeks, Maya discovered just how thoroughly Marcus had planned his exit and how willing he was to destroy her in the process. First, he drained their joint bank account. His name was primary on the account, so technically it was legal. But it left Maya with nothing. Then he had her removed from their apartment. His name was on the lease. She had 30 days to vacate. Then the whisper campaign started. Maya began applying for jobs at other law firms. But mysteriously, none of them called her back. When she finally got an interview at a small firm downtown, the partner looked at her strangely. We heard some concerning things about you, he said, that you are difficult to work with, that you had a breakdown, that you made false accusations against a former employer. Maya's blood ran cold. None of that is true, she said. But the damage was done. Marcus had connections. He knew people who knew people. And he was using those connections to make sure Maya could not get back on her feet. The final blow came from his lawyers. A thick envelope arrived at the apartment she was about to lose. Inside was a cease and desist letter warning her not to make any claims about King Wealth Management. Any statements suggesting she had contributed to the company would be met with legal action. Any attempt to seek equity would be treated as harassment. And attached to the letter was a document Maya did not remember signing. A form from 3 years earlier labeled Asset Protection Agreement. Her signature was at the bottom. According to the document, Maya had waived all claims to the company. She had agreed that any work she did was voluntary and carried no expectation of ownership. She stared at her signature. It looked like her handwriting, but she had no memory of signing this document. She had never seen it before. Had she signed something without reading it carefully? Had she trusted Marcus so completely that she had put her name on papers without understanding what they said? Or had something else happened? Maya did not know. And right now, she did not have the money or the resources to find out. She was 4 months pregnant. She had no job. She had no apartment. She had no savings. And the man who had promised to love her forever had just erased her from his life like she was a mistake he was correcting. That is how Maya Brooks ended up in a studio apartment in a neighborhood she never thought she would live in, working part-time as a grocery store cashier, selling her designer clothes online to pay for groceries, and wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Her new landlord was a woman named Dolores Washington, 67 years old, retired paralegal, with silver hair and absolutely no filter. Dolores took one look at Maya moving in with her 2 suitcases and her pregnant belly and shook her head. Let me guess, Dolores said, man trouble. Maya tried to smile. Is it that obvious? Honey, I have been renting apartments in this building for 20 years. I know man trouble when I see it. The ones in suits are always the worst, by the way. At least the ones in sweatpants are honest about being broke. Maya surprised herself by laughing. It was the first time she had laughed in weeks. Over the following months, Dolores became more than a landlord. She became a reluctant advisor, a source of dark humor, and the only person who told Maya the truth even when it hurt. You need to stop crying and start thinking, Dolores said one evening, finding Maya on the stairs outside her apartment. Tears do not pay rent. Tears do not feed babies. You want revenge on that man? Get your life together. That is the only revenge that matters. I do not want revenge, Maya said quietly. I just want to survive. Dolores snorted. Surviving is good, But do not tell me you would not enjoy watching that man fall. I have seen his face in those magazines. He has the look of a man who is going to fall hard someday. Men like that always do. Maya looked up at the night sky above the city, thinking about Marcus in his beautiful apartment, preparing for his beautiful new life, while she counted quarters for laundry. Someday, she thought, maybe someday. She had no idea that someday was only 2 months away. 6 months after Marcus walked out, Maya's life had found a rhythm. It was not a good rhythm, but it was a rhythm. She worked 25 hours a week at the grocery store. She had given up on finding legal work after the 12th rejection. She had sold everything she could sell, and she was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, and barely holding on. On a Thursday evening, someone knocked on her apartment door. Maya opened it to find Cassandra Miller standing in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine in one hand and a bottle of sparkling water in the other. Cass had been Maya's college roommate, her closest friend for 15 years, and the kind of woman who walked into chaos like she owned it. She was 34, successful as an event photographer, loud, loyal, and absolutely incapable of minding her own business. "Girl," Cass said, pushing past Maya into the apartment. "I saw that magazine cover and I came straight here." "Magazine cover?" Maya asked, closing the door behind her. Cass pulled out her phone and showed Maya the screen. Atlanta Style magazine. The cover featured Marcus King in a perfectly tailored suit, his arm around a beautiful blonde woman. The headline read, "Tech Titan Finds Love. Marcus King and Victoria Ashford announce engagement." Maya stared at the photo. She had known this was coming. She had heard the rumors. But seeing it, actually seeing Marcus with another woman, seeing the announcement of a wedding, it hit differently than she expected. Victoria Ashford, Cass continued, daughter of Harrison Ashford, as in Ashford Real Estate Development, as in one of the wealthiest families in the Southeast. He is marrying into old money. "Good for him," Maya said quietly. She sat down on her second-hand couch and put her hand on her belly. The baby kicked as if sensing her distress. Cass sat down next to her. "Maya, please tell me you are planning something." "Planning something? I am planning to survive, Cass. That is my whole plan. Survive, have this baby, figure out the rest later." Cass shook her head. "That is a terrible plan. He is getting married in 2 months. To a woman whose daddy could buy our entire neighborhood. He ruined your career. He left you pregnant and broke. And you are just going to let him win?" "It is not about winning," Maya said. "I do not have the resources to fight him. I do not have money for lawyers. I do not have connections. I do not have anything." Her voice cracked. "Cass, I have $37 in my bank account. I am eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner. I am trying to figure out how to afford diapers. Fighting Marcus King is not on my priority list." Cass was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "What if I told you that fighting Marcus King might be exactly what puts you in a position to afford diapers?" "What are you talking about?" Cass opened the folder. "I have been doing some research. Since I saw that magazine cover, I started digging. I know you helped build that company, Maya. I was there in those early days, remember? I watched you work 80-hour weeks reviewing his contracts. I watched you skip your sister's wedding because he had an investor meeting he needed you to prep for." Maya nodded slowly. Those memories felt like they belonged to another person now. "In Georgia," Cass continued, "there is something called putative spouse doctrine. If you contributed substantially to a business during a marriage, you may have a claim to equity even if your name is not on the documents. The statute of limitations has not run out. You might actually have a case." "I signed something," Maya said quietly. "Some document years ago. His lawyer sent it to me. It says I waived all claims." Cass frowned. "Do you remember signing it?" Maya hesitated. "I do not know, maybe. I signed a lot of things back then. I trusted him. Did you have a lawyer review it?" "No, I was his lawyer. At least I thought I was. Then we need to look at that document more closely, because either you signed it without understanding what it said, which might make it voidable, or something else happened. Something else?" Cass looked at her seriously. "Maya, men like Marcus do not just plan exits. They cover their tracks. If that document appeared out of nowhere, if you have no memory of it, maybe there is a reason." The implication hung in the air between them. Forgery. Was Cass suggesting Marcus had forged her signature? I cannot prove anything, Maya said. I cannot afford an investigator. I cannot afford to fight this. You cannot afford not to, Cass replied. But that is not why I am really here. She pulled out another piece of paper from the folder. I am photographing his wedding. What? The King Ashford wedding. It is the event of the season. Every photographer in Atlanta wanted that contract and I got it. I have all access credentials to the venue, the rehearsal dinner, everything. Maya stared at her friend. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you should be there too. At his wedding? Are you insane? Cass shook her head. Not as a guest. The wedding needs servers, caterers, staff. I have a contact at the temp agency they are using. I can get you a position. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want me to serve drinks at my ex-husband's wedding? While I am 8 months pregnant, that is your plan. My plan, Cass said carefully, is for you to be in a position to gather information, to watch, to listen. Rich people talk freely in front of servers because they do not think of servers as real people. They do not censor themselves. And Marcus, especially when he is drinking, when he is celebrating, he might say something useful. Useful how? Useful like admitting he froze you out of the company. Useful like talking about how he planned to leave you before the pregnancy. Useful like anything that could help your case. Maya was quiet for a long moment. This feels crazy, she finally said. It is crazy, but so is letting him get away with everything. You were a lawyer, Maya. You know how evidence works. You know that sometimes you have to be in the room to get what you need. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Maya thought about the last 6 months, the humiliation, the poverty, the night she had spent crying on her bathroom floor, the way Marcus had erased her like she was a typo in the story of his success. She thought about her daughter growing inside her, the daughter who would someday ask about her father. What would Maya tell her? That she gave up, that she let him win, or that she fought back? Okay, Maya said finally, I will do it, but not for revenge. Then why? Because I need to know the truth. I need to know if I really signed that document or if he did something else. I need to know who I was married to. And maybe if I am lucky, I need to get evidence that can help me build a case. Cass smiled. Now that is the Maya I remember, the one who does not give up. There was a knock at the door. Dolores's voice came through. I can hear you two scheming in there. Whatever trouble you are planning, I want in. Maya and Cass looked at each other and laughed. Come in, Dolores, Maya called. The door opened. Dolores stood there with her arms crossed. I was a paralegal for 30 years, she said. If you are going after a rich man who did you wrong, you are going to need someone who knows how the law works and how it does not. She sat down in Maya's only chair and looked between the two younger women. Now, tell me everything, and do not leave out any details. The devil is always in the details. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya, Cass, and Dolores worked on what they called the plan. It was not much of a plan, really. It was more like a collection of hopes held together by determination. The first piece was the job. Cass pulled strings with her contact at the temp agency, and Maya got a call back within 3 days. The position was server for a black tie event at the Ashford estate. The pay was $300 plus tips. The date was the King Ashford wedding. Maya almost backed out a dozen times. The morning of the interview, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, looking at her reflection. Her face was tired. There were dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Her pregnant belly stretched the black dress she had found at a thrift store. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who had been through something hard. You are allowed to walk away, she told herself. No one would blame you. But then she thought about Marcus, about the way he had called her starter wife material, about the way he had offered her $50,000 to disappear, about the document she may or may not have signed. And she thought about something else, something that had been nagging at her for weeks. If Marcus had planned all of this so carefully, if he had systematically destroyed her reputation and taken everything, then he was afraid of something. You do not go to that much trouble to eliminate someone unless they have the power to hurt you, which meant Maya had power. She just did not know what it was yet. She went to the interview. She got the job. The second piece of the plan was the recording. Dolores had done the research. Georgia is a one-party consent state, Dolores explained over coffee in Maya's tiny kitchen. That means you can legally record any conversation you are part of as long as you are one of the parties. You do not need his permission. You just need to be there. What kind of recording device? Maya asked. Dolores smiled and pulled out a small digital recorder, barely larger than a thumb drive. My nephew is in private security. He lent me this. Voice activated. 8 hours of storage, fits in an apron pocket. Just press the button once to start, and it runs until you press it again. Maya took the recorder, turning it over in her hands. This feels like something out of a spy movie. Honey, boy bear, dying right now, honey, Dolores replied. When you are up against a man with money and lawyers and connections, you need every advantage you can get. He is bringing an army. You are bringing intelligence. The third piece of the plan was research. Maya spent every spare moment digging into Marcus's business, into the Ashford family, into anything that might be useful. What she found was interesting. King Wealth Management had grown fast, but there were whispers of problems. Several early employees had left under mysterious circumstances. There were lawsuits that had been quietly settled, and there were rumors, unconfirmed but persistent, that Marcus had been aggressive about silencing anyone who threatened his reputation. Even more interesting was the Ashford family. Victoria's father, Harrison Ashford, was a real estate developer worth $500 million. He was also deeply involved in charitable work, running the Ashford Foundation, which donated millions to underprivileged communities. And according to the foundation's public records, Marcus King had been appointed as an investment advisor 6 months ago. He is managing their money, Maya said to Cass, pointing at her laptop screen. Harrison Ashford gave Marcus access to the family's charitable foundation. That is a lot of trust, Cass observed, or a lot of opportunity for someone who is not trustworthy. Maya did not know yet what it meant, but she filed the information away. The fourth and final piece of the plan was Maya herself. The night before the wedding, Cass came over with a bag of supplies. She helped Maya press her server uniform, polish her shoes, and prepare everything she would need. Then Cass sat Maya down and looked at her seriously. I need you to understand something. Tomorrow is going to be hard. You are going to walk into that wedding, 8 months pregnant, wearing a server uniform, and you are going to watch your ex-husband marry another woman. That is going to hurt. There is no way around it hurting. Maya nodded. I know. But here's the thing. You are not going there to hurt. You are not going there to cry. You are going there to watch, to listen, and to gather. You are a lawyer, Maya. You know how to collect evidence. You know how to pay attention to details. That is your superpower. I am a pregnant woman in a black dress, Maya replied. I do not feel very super right now. Cass took her hand. Every woman in this world who has ever been underestimated knows what it is like to feel powerless. But underestimation is a kind of power too. No one expects anything from you. No one is watching you carefully. That makes you invisible. And invisible people see everything. Maya thought about her mother, who had raised 3 children on a nursing assistant's salary after Maya's father left. Her mother had been underestimated her whole life, and she had used that underestimation to build something beautiful anyway. Maybe Cass was right. Maybe being invisible was not a weakness. Maybe it was a weapon. Okay, Maya said, I am ready. Are you? Really? No, but I am going anyway. Cass smiled. That is all any of us can do, girl. Go anyway. That night, Maya lay in bed with her hands on her belly, feeling her daughter move inside her. I do not know what is going to happen tomorrow, she whispered. I do not know if this is brave or stupid, but I know one thing. I am not going to let your father erase me. Not from your life. Not from the story. I was there at the beginning, and I am going to make sure the world knows it. Her daughter kicked in response as if to say, Go get him, Mama. Maya smiled in the darkness. Whatever happened tomorrow, she would face it, and whatever came after, she would survive it. She had already survived the hardest thing. She had survived losing everything. From here, there was only one direction to go. Up. The Ashford estate was exactly the kind of place Maya had once dreamed of visiting as a guest. The property sprawled across 40 acres outside Atlanta, with manicured gardens, a private lake, in a mansion that looked like it belonged in a European fairy tale. The main house had 28 rooms. The wedding reception would be held in a specially constructed tent that was larger than most people's homes. Fresh flowers had been shipped in from 3 different countries. Maya arrived at 4:30 in the afternoon, parking her old Honda in the staff lot behind the catering building. For a long moment, she just sat in the car, her hands on the steering wheel, trying to steady her breathing. "You can do this," she told herself. $300, evidence, information. Get in, get out, survive. She touched the small recorder in her apron pocket. It was already on, running silently. The staff check-in was efficient and impersonal. A woman with a clipboard marked Maya's name off a list, handed her a name tag, and directed her to orientation. There were about 30 other servers, most of them young, most of them here for the paycheck. Maya kept her head down and tried to blend in. The orientation was brief. Professional appearance at all times. No personal phones during service. Circulate with drinks during cocktail hour. Clear plates during dinner. Be invisible unless directly addressed. Invisible. Maya almost laughed. That was exactly what she planned to be. At 5:30, the first guests began arriving. Expensive cars rolled up the long driveway. Men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns stepped out, laughing and talking with the ease of people who had never worried about anything practical in their lives. Maya picked up her first tray of champagne and began to circulate. She saw faces she recognized from business magazines. Tech executives, real estate moguls, politicians. The Atlanta elite had turned out in force to celebrate Marcus King's marriage to Victoria Ashford. And then, at exactly 6 o'clock, Maya saw him. Marcus stood near the entrance of the reception tent, greeting guests with that perfect smile she knew so well. He looked exactly like the magazines. Perfectly tailored tuxedo, gold cufflinks catching the light, every hair in place, every gesture calculated for maximum impression. And beside him, holding his arm, was Victoria Ashford. Maya had expected to hate her, the other woman, the replacement, but as she watched Victoria from across the room, she saw something unexpected. Victoria was beautiful, yes. Blonde hair perfectly styled, dress that probably cost more than Maya's car, jewelry that sparkled in the candlelight. But Victoria was also scared. Maya recognized the look, the slight tension around the mouth, the way her smile did not quite reach her eyes. The way she kept touching Marcus's arm, not with affection, but with a kind of desperate holding on. Victoria Ashford was marrying Marcus King, and she was terrified. Why? Maya filed the observation away and continued circulating. For the next hour, she moved through the cocktail reception like a ghost. She offered champagne. She murmured thank you when guests took glasses. She watched and listened. Rich people, she discovered, talked freely in front of servers. Cass had been right about that. They discussed business deals and romantic scandals and petty grievances like Maya was not even there, like she was part of the furniture. She heard investors talking about King Wealth Management. Strong quarterly returns, one man said. But I have heard there are some irregularities in the accounting. Nothing confirmed, but I am keeping my investments small until I see cleaner books. Another man laughed. Harrison Ashford is putting his whole foundation with King. Either Harrison knows something we do not, or he is about to learn a very expensive lesson. Maya's ears perked up. Irregularities, accounting problems. This was interesting. She drifted closer to another conversation. 2 women in designer gowns were gossiping about Victoria. Poor thing has been a wreck for weeks, one woman said. My daughter went to school with her. She says Victoria has barely been eating. Panic attacks, crying jags. You would think a bride about to marry a handsome billionaire would be happier. Maybe she knows something, the other woman suggested. What do you mean? You know what I mean. Men like Marcus King always have secrets. Maybe Victoria is starting to figure that out. The first woman shook her head. Too late now. The wedding is in an hour. Whatever she knows, she is stuck with. Maya moved away, her mind racing. Victoria was unhappy, scared, having panic attacks. Why would a woman marrying into success and wealth be so miserable? Unless she had discovered something. Something about Marcus. Something that frightened her. At 7 o'clock, the wedding ceremony began. Maya and the other servers were required to stand at the back of the tent, silent and still, while 300 guests took their seats. The sun was setting over the Ashford estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A string quartet played softly. Everything was perfect and beautiful and absolutely suffocating. The officiant, a distinguished older man, with a kind voice, began to speak about love and commitment and partnership. Maya watched as Marcus and Victoria stood at the altar, hand in hand. She watched as they exchanged vows. "I promise to love you," Marcus said, looking into Victoria's eyes with perfect sincerity. "To stand by you, to support you, to never abandon you, no matter what challenges we face." Lies. All of it lies. Maya had heard those same promises 5 years ago. She had believed them. And Marcus had broken every single one. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Marcus kissed Victoria. The crowd applauded, cameras flashed, and Maya stood in the back, hand on her pregnant belly, watching the man who had destroyed her celebrate with another woman. But she did not cry. She did not break. Instead, she watched Victoria's face in that moment of the kiss. And she saw it again. That flash of fear. That shadow of doubt. Victoria Ashford King knew something was wrong. She just did not know what yet. And neither did Maya. But they were both about to find out. The reception was in full swing when Marcus finally noticed Maya. She had been careful. So careful. For nearly 2 hours, she had stayed on the opposite side of the enormous tent from wherever he stood. When he moved toward the bar, she circulated near the dance floor. When he greeted guests by the entrance, she cleared plates from the far tables. She had become a ghost, floating through the most expensive wedding of the year, invisible to everyone who mattered. But at 8:45, as she was carrying an empty tray back toward the service area, she felt it, that prickling sensation on the back of her neck, the feeling of being watched by someone who wanted to do her harm. She looked up. Marcus was standing near the bar, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his bow tie slightly loosened, his jacket unbuttoned. He had been drinking steadily for the past hour. She had noticed because noticing was what she did now. Watching, gathering, surviving. His eyes were locked on her, and the expression on his face sent ice down her spine. He knew she was there. He had known all along. Of course he had. He had arranged it. Maya watched as Marcus said something to the group of men surrounding him. Investors, probably. The kind of men who wrote checks with 6 zeros and expected returns that defied mathematics. They laughed at whatever he said, nodding, agreeing the way people they always agreed with Marcus. Then he handed his glass to one of them, straightened his jacket, and began walking toward her. The crowd seemed to part for him. It always did. Marcus King moved through the world like he owned it, and most of the time, people let him believe he did. Maya's heart pounded against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to disappear into the kitchen, to hide among the other servers and pretend she had never been here. But she forced herself to stand still. She had spent 6 months running, 6 months hiding, 6 months letting Marcus King dictate the terms of her existence. Not tonight. Tonight she would stand her ground, even if her knees were shaking, even if her hands trembled around the empty tray, even if everything in her wanted to flee. Marcus stopped directly in front of her. Close, too close. The kind of close that was designed to intimidate, to remind her that he was bigger, stronger, more powerful in every way that mattered. She could smell his cologne. Tom Ford. $300 a bottle. The same cologne he had worn on their wedding day. The same cologne she used to breathe in when she buried her face against his neck at night, back when she believed he loved her. The smell made her stomach turn. "Maya," he said softly. His voice was pleasant, friendly even, like they were old friends running into each other at a reunion, like he had not spent the past 6 months systematically destroying every aspect of her life. "I wondered if you would actually show up." Maya kept her voice steady. It took everything she had, but she kept it steady. "I needed the work." Marcus smiled, but his eyes stayed cold, dead, like a shark who had spotted something bleeding in the water. "Of course you did." He let his gaze travel slowly down her body, past her face, past her shoulders, down to her belly, where it lingered with an expression that made her skin crawl. "You must be desperate by now," he continued. "Living in that little apartment, Working at that grocery store. He clicked his tongue in mock sympathy. I have to admit, Maya, I am impressed. Most women in your situation would have too much pride to serve drinks at their ex-husband's wedding. The words were designed to wound, and they did. Each one found its target with surgical precision. But Maya had been wounded before. She had been wounded so many times in the past 6 months that she was starting to develop scar tissue. Most women in my situation, she replied quietly, would not have been put there by someone they trusted. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Surprise, maybe. He had expected her to crumble, to apologize, to beg. He did not expect her to push back. But the moment passed, and his smug expression returned. Still playing the victim, I see. He took a sip of his whiskey, utterly unbothered. Some things never change. I am not playing anything, Maya said. I am working. So if you will excuse me, I have a job to do. She tried to step around him, tried to end this conversation before it could become something worse. But Marcus moved into her path, blocking her, trapping her. Not so fast. His voice dropped lower, harder, the pleasant mask slipping just enough to show the predator underneath. I want to make sure we understand each other, Maya. I want to make sure there is no confusion about how tonight is going to go. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the pores on his skin, close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath mixing with that expensive cologne. You are here because I allowed you to be here. Did you think it was a coincidence that the temp agency called you? Out of all the servers in Atlanta, they just happened to pick my pregnant ex-wife? Maya's blood went cold. She had suspected, she had known really, but hearing him admit it out loud was different. I requested you specifically, Marcus continued. I wanted you here tonight. I wanted you to see all of this. He gestured around the tent, at the crystal chandeliers, at the designer gowns, at the champagne towers and the ice sculptures and the string quartet playing softly in the corner. I wanted you to understand exactly what you lost when I left. I wanted you to feel it, really feel it, the distance between what you are and what you could have been. Maya forced herself to meet his eyes, forced herself not to look away. I know, she said. I figured it out when I saw the job listing. You are predictable, Marcus. You always need an audience for your cruelty. For a moment, just a moment, something dangerous flashed across his face. Marcus King did not like being called predictable. He did not like being figured out. His entire self-image was built on the idea that he was smarter than everyone else, always 3 steps ahead. And Maya had just told him she saw through him. You think you are clever, he said slowly. The words came out tight, controlled, but underneath, she could hear the anger building. You think you have me figured out. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. But look at you, Maya. Look at where you are standing right now. You are a pregnant woman in a cheap black dress and borrowed shoes, serving drinks at my wedding. My wedding. To a woman whose family is worth $500 million. He leaned closer. You are nothing. You are nobody. And after tonight, you are going to go back to your pathetic little life in your pathetic little apartment, and I am never going to think about you again. You will just be a footnote, a cautionary tale, the woman who could not keep up. The words hit like fists, each one designed to break something inside her. And they almost worked. For a moment, Maya felt herself shrinking, felt herself becoming small and invisible, the way she had felt for months, the way Marcus had always made her feel when he wanted to control her. But then something unexpected happened. She got angry. Not the hot, explosive anger that burns itself out quickly. This was something different, something cold and clear and absolutely certain. If I am nobody, Maya said quietly, then why are you so determined to hurt me? Marcus blinked. If I am nothing, Maya continued, why did you spend 6 months destroying my career? Why did you call every law firm in Atlanta and spread lies about me? Why did you drain our bank accounts and have me evicted from our home? She stepped toward him, into his space, the way he had stepped into hers. And why did you send me those documents claiming I waived all my rights to the company I helped you build? Documents I do not remember signing, documents that appeared out of nowhere. Marcus's expression shifted, just slightly, just enough for Maya to see that she had hit something true. You are scared of me, Marcus. That is the truth, is it not? You are scared of what I know. You are scared of what I might say. You are scared that someday someone is going to look past your fancy suits and your charming smile and see exactly what you really are. She paused. That is why you wanted me here tonight. Not to humiliate me, to control me, to remind me that you have all the power. For a long moment, they stood there, face to face, eye to eye. 300 guests laughed and danced around them, oblivious. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above. A string quartet played something soft and romantic. And between Marcus King and Maya Brooks, years of love and betrayal and lies hung in the air like smoke. Then Marcus leaned in close. His voice dropped to a whisper, soft enough that only she could hear. Listen to me very carefully, Maya. If you say one word to anyone tonight, if you do anything to embarrass me in front of these people, I will destroy what is left of your life. I will make sure you never work again. Anywhere. In any field. I will make sure every landlord in Atlanta knows you are a risk. I will make sure every school your child might attend knows their mother is unstable. He smiled, cold, satisfied. I will make your life so hard that you will wish you had taken my $50,000 and disappeared. Do we understand each other? Maya looked at him. This man she had loved with everything she had. This man she had sacrificed her career for, her ambitions for, her identity for. This man who had become a monster wearing a familiar face. Yes, she said quietly, we understand each other perfectly. Marcus nodded, mistaking her calm for submission. Good. Now get back to work and stay away from my wife. He turned and walked away, rejoining his investors, his important guests, his adoring public. And Maya stood there in the middle of the reception, her heart racing, her hands shaking, her mind spinning. But she was not defeated, because in her apron pocket, pressed against her hip, the digital recorder was still running, and Marcus King had just admitted to everything. The next hour was the longest of Maya's life. She moved through the reception like a woman walking underwater. Every sound was muffled. Every movement felt slow and deliberate. She circulated with drinks. She cleared plates. She smiled when guests acknowledged her, which was almost never. But her mind was somewhere else entirely. She had the recording. She had Marcus admitting that he arranged for her to be there. She had him threatening her, promising to destroy her life if she spoke up. She had evidence. Was it enough? She did not know. She was not even sure what enough meant anymore. But it was something. After 6 months of having nothing, it was finally something. At 9:30, she found Cass in a quiet corner near the photography equipment. Cass was pretending to adjust her camera, but her eyes were scanning the room, watching everything. When she saw Maya approaching, her face tightened with concern. What happened? You look like you have seen a ghost. Maya leaned close, keeping her voice low. I got it. He confronted me by the bar. He admitted to arranging the trial. He threatened me. He said he would destroy my life if I talked. It is all on the recorder. Cass's eyes went wide. Maya. That is huge. That is actual evidence of harassment. Maybe even witness tampering if he is trying to keep you quiet about the company stuff. I know. We need to get you out of here, right now. Get that recording somewhere safe before anything else happens. Maya hesitated. Cass was right. The smart thing to do was leave. Take the recording, go home, call her lawyer friend in the morning. Play it safe. But something kept her rooted to the spot. A feeling she could not shake. The look on Victoria's face during the ceremony. The way Marcus's bride had seemed more scared than happy. The whispered conversations Maya had overheard about irregularities in King Wealth Management. The sense that there were layers to this story she had not yet uncovered. Let me stay another hour, Maya said. I feel like something else is going to happen. Cass grabbed his arm. Maya, do not push your luck. You got what you came for. More than you came for. This is not a movie. You do not need to stay for the dramatic finale. Just get out while you can. I know you are right, but Maya struggled to put it into words. My lawyer brain is telling me there is more here. Something bigger than just my case. Something about Marcus in this company, and maybe even the Ashfords. I cannot explain it. I just feel it. Cass stared at her for a long moment. You always did have good instincts, she finally said. even when they were inconvenient. Fine. 1 more hour, but you stay near the exits, and if anything feels wrong, you leave immediately. Promise me. I promise. But Maya would not get to keep that promise, because at that exact moment, the band stopped playing. The sudden silence was jarring. 300 conversations faltered and faded as guests turned toward the stage, confused. Someone was tapping on a microphone. It was Marcus. He stood at the front of the tent, spotlight catching his perfect smile, his perfect tuxedo, his perfect everything. He looked like a man who had won every game he had ever played. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying effortlessly across the space. "If I could have your attention, please." The crowd quieted immediately. When Marcus King spoke, people listened. That was part of his gift. "First, I want to thank every single one of you for being here on this incredible night. Marrying Victoria is the happiest moment of my life." Applause rippled through the tent. Victoria stood near the stage smiling, but Maya saw what others did not. The tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands, the way her smile did not quite reach her eyes. Victoria Ashford King was not happy. She was terrified. Why? But Marcus was still talking. "Tonight is about celebration," he continued, "about love, about the future Victoria and I are building together. But before we continue the party, I want to take a moment to address something, or rather, someone." Maya's blood went cold. No, he would not. "Some of you may have noticed a familiar face among our service staff tonight. He would not do this. Not even Marcus would be this cruel. My ex-wife, Maya, is here, serving drinks at my wedding." The crowd murmured. A wave of whispers swept through the tent as 300 pairs of eyes began searching for her. Maya stood frozen, a tray of empty glasses in her hands, as guest after guest located her and stared. The woman in the red dress near the bar found her first, then the older couple by the dance floor. Then a whole table of investors turned to look at her like she was an exhibit in a museum. The struggling ex-wife. "Please do not tap on the glass." "Now," Marcus continued, his voice smooth as honey poured over broken glass. "Some might think that is sad. A woman serving drinks at the wedding of the man who left her. But I think it is poetic." He smiled at the crowd like he was sharing a private joke. "You see, Maya was part of my journey once. She was there in the early days when I was just getting started, when King Wealth Management was nothing but an idea and a dream." He paused for effect. He had always been good at pauses, but some people are meant to be stepping stones, not destinations. Some people are chapter 1, not the whole book. Maya was useful for a while. She played her part, but she was never meant for this world. He gestured around the tent. At the wealth, the power, the success. This is where she belongs now, serving, on the sidelines, watching from the edges while the rest of us live. The words hit Maya like physical blows. Stepping stone, useful, on the sidelines. This was not just humiliation. This was annihilation, public, calculated, complete destruction of whatever dignity she had left. 300 wealthy, powerful, influential people were staring at her, judging her, some with pity, some with contempt, some with the mild curiosity of people watching a car accident from a safe distance. And Marcus stood at the front of the room, drinking in her shame like it was the finest champagne. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. Her throat closed tight. Every cell in her body screamed at her to run, to hide, to escape this nightmare. But she would not cry. She would not give him that. Not here. Not in front of these people. Not while he was watching. Instead, she set down her tray, carefully, deliberately, on the nearest table. She straightened her shoulders, and she began walking toward the exit, one foot in front of the other, head high, back straight, moving through the crowd like she could not feel their stares burning into her skin. She was going to make it. She was going to walk out of here with at least a shred of pride intact. But Marcus was not finished. "Maya, wait!" His voice rang out across the tent, mocking, amused. "Do you not want to say something? You always had so many opinions when we were married. So many thoughts about everything. Surely you have something to say now, some final words for the audience." "Keep walking," Maya told herself. "Do not engage, do not give him anything else." But the exit was still 50 feet away, and Marcus was already stepping down from the stage. already moving toward her through the parting crowd. I said, wait. His hand closed around her arm. Hard. Maya tried to pull away, tried to break free. And in the struggle, his fingers caught the fabric of her dress. The sound of tearing fabric cut through the silence like a scream. Maya looked down. Her dress had ripped open along the side seam. The cheap material, already stretched tight over her pregnant belly, had given way completely. The fabric hung from her shoulders in ragged pieces, exposing her belly, her slip, her vulnerability. She stood there in front of 300 people, her clothing torn, her pregnancy completely exposed, her dignity in shreds on the floor. The room gasped. Someone dropped a glass. The sound of it shattering was impossibly loud. For one terrible, eternal moment, everything stopped. Maya could not move, could not breathe, could not think. This was it, the absolute lowest point. Rock bottom, the place where you realize that things can always get worse. She had thought being abandoned was the worst thing. She had thought being broke was the worst thing. She had thought being invisible was the worst thing. But this, standing half-dressed in a room full of strangers, while the man who destroyed her life smiled with satisfaction. This was worse. This was destruction. Complete, devastating destruction. And Marcus knew it. She could see it in his eyes. The triumph, the victory, the absolute certainty that he had finally, permanently broken her. This was the moment he had been waiting for. This was why he had brought her here. Not just to humiliate her, to destroy her so completely that she would never recover, never fight back, never be a threat to him again. And then something happened that Maya did not expect. Her baby kicked. It was not a gentle flutter. It was a strong, solid kick, almost fierce, almost angry, like her daughter was saying, "Get up, mama, fight." And something shifted inside Maya. The shame was still there. The humiliation was still there. But underneath it, rising up from somewhere deep and primal, was something else. Rage. Not hot, explosive anger. This was different. This was cold and clear and absolutely certain. She had nothing left to lose. He had taken everything. Her career, her home, her reputation, her dignity. What else could he possibly take? And if she had nothing left to lose, then she had nothing left to fear. Maya straightened her spine. She lifted her chin. She wrapped her arms around her torn clothing, holding it closed over her belly. And instead of running, instead of crying, instead of giving Marcus the complete victory he so desperately wanted, she turned to face the crowd. Her voice when she spoke was steady, clear, strong. "Since I am already exposed," she said, "let me tell you what he forgot to mention." The room went absolutely silent. Marcus's smile faltered, and Maya Brooks, pregnant, humiliated, standing in the ruins of her dignity, began to speak her truth. The ballroom went silent. 300 people stood frozen, phones still recording, watching as Maya Brooks, pregnant, her dress torn, refused to crumble. Marcus's face went from smug to confused to something approaching fear. "Maya," he said sharply, "that is enough. Security." But no security came. Everyone was too stunned to move. Maya took a breath and began to speak. "My name is Maya Brooks. 3 years ago, I was a corporate attorney in Atlanta. I was also married to Marcus King." Her voice carried across the tent, amplified by the silence. "I met Marcus when he was nobody, when King Wealth Management was just an idea he talked about in our tiny apartment. I believed in him when no one else did. I used my legal training to structure his company, to review his contracts, to protect his intellectual property. I worked 80-hour weeks on his dream while putting my own career on hold." She looked around at the crowd, at the investors, at the business leaders, at the people who thought Marcus was a genius. And when the company started succeeding, when the money started coming in and the magazines started calling, "Do you know what Marcus did?" She paused. "He left me while I was 3 months pregnant. He called me starter wife material. He said I was practice for the real thing. He offered me $50,000 to go away quietly." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "But he did not stop there," Maya continued. "He drained our bank accounts. He had me evicted from our home. He used his connections to make sure no law firm in Atlanta would hire me. He systematically destroyed my life so that I would be too broken to fight back." She looked directly at Marcus. And then he arranged for me to work at his wedding. He specifically requested me, not because he needed servers, because he wanted to humiliate me one more time. He wanted me to see how high he had risen while I fell. Lies, Marcus sputtered. She is lying. She is a bitter ex-wife trying to ruin my day. But Maya was not finished. You know what the funny thing is, Marcus? I do have recordings, legal recordings. Georgia is a one-party consent state, and you just admitted in front of 300 people who are all recording on their phones that you deliberately arranged for me to be here. That is evidence of harassment. Marcus's face went pale. But wait, Maya said, the best part has not happened yet. Because at that moment, Victoria Ashford King stepped forward. She had been standing near the stage, watching everything unfold. Her face was unreadable, but she was holding something in her hand. Her phone. Victoria walked slowly toward the front of the room. Every eye followed her. Victoria, Marcus said, his voice suddenly uncertain. Baby, you do not have to listen to her. She is crazy. She is just trying to hurt us. Victoria stopped next to Maya. She looked at her husband. Actually, she said quietly, I do have to listen. The crowd went completely silent. Victoria turned to face the guests. 3 weeks ago, she began, I started finding things. Emails on Marcus's computer that did not make sense. Financial transfers I could not explain. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Wedding stress, cold feet. She paused, but something felt wrong. So I hired a private investigator. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. What I found out, Victoria continued, is that Marcus King has been stealing from my family. The Ashford Foundation, my father's charity, entrusted Marcus with managing our investment portfolio. He has been siphoning money through shell companies. Over the past 6 months, he has taken $2.3 million. The room erupted. Harrison Ashford, Victoria's father, stood up from his table, his face purple with rage. Victoria, is this true? You have proof? I have the files, Dad. I sent them to the FBI this morning. They are waiting outside right now. Marcus backed away, his hands raised. This is insane, Victoria. You do not know what you are doing. These are lies. All of this is lies, but it was too late. The doors at the back of the tent opened. 3 FBI agents in dark suits walked in. Marcus King, the lead agent said, we have a warrant for your arrest. Charges include wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. The guests gasped. Some stood up from their tables. Phones recorded everything. This cannot be happening, Marcus said. Do you know who I am? We do, sir, the agent replied calmly. That is why we are here. They put him in handcuffs, right there, in front of 300 people, in his $10,000 tuxedo at his own wedding. As they led him toward the exit, Marcus twisted around to look at Maya. You did this, he snarled. You ruined everything. Maya shook her head. No, Marcus, you did this. All I did was refuse to be invisible anymore. The agents led him away. The tent buzzed with shocked conversation. The wedding of the decade had just become the scandal of the decade, and Maya Brooks stood in the middle of it all, her dress still torn, her pregnant belly exposed, but somehow more whole than she had been in months. Victoria approached her. I am sorry, Victoria said, and her voice cracked. I am so sorry for what he did to you. I had no idea. Not until I started investigating the money. You did not know, Maya replied. He fooled you too. Victoria nodded. Tears were streaming down her face. I almost married him, she whispered. If you had not been here, if this had not happened tonight, I would have married him. I would have been trapped. Maya reached out and took Victoria's hand. We saved each other, she said. That is what matters now. Victoria looked down at their joined hands. Then she looked up at Maya. What happens next? She asked. Next, Maya said, we start putting the pieces back together. 3 months later, a lot had changed. Marcus King was in federal custody, awaiting trial on multiple charges. The evidence Victoria had gathered, combined with the FBI investigation, had revealed a pattern of fraud that went back years. He was facing it up to 20 years in prison. King Wealth Management was in chaos. Investors had pulled their money. The board had appointed an emergency CEO, and a court-ordered audit had revealed that the company's success had been built on a foundation of manipulated numbers and stolen funds. Maya's legal case had moved forward faster than anyone expected. The documents Marcus's lawyers had sent her, the ones claiming she had waived her rights, turned out to be forgeries. A handwriting expert had confirmed it. Maya had never signed those papers. Marcus had fabricated them to protect himself. With that evidence, plus the recordings from the wedding, Maya's attorney had filed suit for her rightful share of the company. The case was still ongoing, but early indications were favorable. She might actually get what she deserved. But the biggest change was more personal. On a cold February night, 3 weeks after the wedding disaster, Maya went into labor. Cass drove her to the hospital, speeding through red lights and cursing at traffic. Dolores met them there, having taken a taxi because, as she put it, "I am not missing this baby for anything." And 12 hours later, after pain and fear and pushing and more pain, Maya gave birth to a healthy baby girl. 6 pounds, 8 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a head full of dark curly hair, and eyes that looked around at the world with what seemed like curiosity. "She is perfect," Cass whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She is a miracle," Dolores agreed. Maya held her daughter against her chest and felt something settle into place. All the pain, all the struggle, all the months of fear and uncertainty. It had led to this moment, this tiny, perfect person who was completely hers. "Her name is Hope," Maya said, "because even when I had nothing else, I had hope that we would be okay." Hope looked up at her mother and made a small sound, and Maya knew with absolute certainty that they were going to be more than okay. Over the following months, Maya's life continued to transform. Victoria Ashford Durer, who had started out as the other woman, became an unlikely ally. She and Maya met for coffee a few weeks after the wedding, both of them uncertain about what to say. But as they talked, they discovered they had more in common than they expected. Both had been deceived by Marcus. Both had trusted someone who used that trust against them. Both were trying to figure out who they were outside of his shadow. "I spent so long being Harrison Ashford's daughter," Victoria said. "Then I was going to be Marcus King's wife. I never asked myself who Victoria is on her own." "Maybe this is your chance to find out," Maya suggested. Victoria nodded slowly. "Maybe it is." Over the following weeks, a friendship grew. Victoria used her family's resources to help Maya navigate the legal battle. Maya used her attorney's brain to help Victoria understand the financial mess Marcus had left behind. And together they began to build something new. It started as a website, a resource for women who had been financially abused by partners, who had signed documents they did not understand, who had trusted someone who used that trust to control them. They called it Starting Over. The website provided legal resources, financial education, and most importantly, community, a space for women to share their stories and support each other. Within 3 months, it had helped over 500 women. Within 6 months, it had become a nonprofit organization with full-time staff. And Maya Brooks, former server, former struggling single mother, had become the executive director. She gave interviews about her experience. She spoke at conferences about financial abuse. She testified before state legislators about the need for stronger protections. And everywhere she went, she carried the same message. Your worst moment does not have to define you. The people who try to break you are often the ones who fear you most. And sometimes the path through hell leads to something better than you could have imagined. One evening, almost a year after the wedding disaster, Maya sat in the nursery of her new apartment, watching Hope sleep. It was a real apartment this time. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with actual counter space, a neighborhood with good schools, nothing fancy but solid and stable, and hers. Dolores lived 1 floor down. She had moved when her old building was sold, and Maya had helped her find a place nearby. Cass visited every Sunday with takeout and stories about her photography work. Maya had built a life, a real life. Not the life she had planned, but maybe a better one. Her phone buzzed. A message from her attorney. The settlement came through. 35% equity in King Wealth Management, plus back child support, plus damages. Check your email. Maya opened her email and stared at the number. It was more money than she had ever imagined having. Enough to pay for Hope's education. Enough to fund starting over for years. Enough to never worry about rent or groceries again. She sat there for a long time, looking at the number, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The tiny apartment where she had cried on the bathroom floor, the grocery store where she had worked for minimum wage, the wedding where she had been humiliated in front of 300 people. And now this. She had won. Not because Marcus had lost, although he had, but because she had refused to disappear. She had refused to accept the story he tried to write about her. She had stood up and spoken her truth, even when her dress was torn and her heart was breaking. That was the victory, not the money, the refusal to be erased. Hope stirred in her crib. Maya walked over and picked her up, holding her daughter close. "We made it, baby girl," she whispered. "We really made it." 1 year later, Maya stood on a stage in front of 200 women. The conference was called Rising Strong, and it had been organized by Starting Over, the nonprofit she and Victoria had built. Women had come from all over the country, women who had been through hell, women who were still going through it, women who needed to know they were not alone. Maya looked out at their faces. She saw her own story reflected in their eyes, the fear, the doubt, the determination. And she began to speak. "A year ago, I was serving drinks at my ex-husband's wedding. I was 8 months pregnant, broke, and convinced that my life was over. He had taken everything from me, my career, my home, my sense of self. He had spent months systematically destroying me because he was afraid of what I might become." She paused, and then he tore my dress. In front of 300 people, in front of cameras. He wanted to break me completely. He wanted to prove, once and for all, that I was nothing. Maya smiled. But here is what he did not understand. Here is what anyone who tries to silence you or shame you or break you will never understand. When someone tries to rip you open to hurt you, light gets in through the tears, truth gets in, strength gets in. And sometimes if you are brave enough to stand in that moment of exposure instead of running from it, you find out that you were never as broken as they wanted you to believe. The audience was silent, riveted. "I am not here to tell you that survival is easy. It is not. I am not here to tell you that justice always comes. It does not always. But I am here to tell you something I wish someone had told me on my worst day." She leaned forward. "Your story is not over. Your value is not determined by someone who could not see it. And the people who try hardest to destroy you are often the ones who fear you most." She looked around the room. "That fear is proof of your power. Use it, channel it, build something with it, because the best revenge is not watching them fall. The best revenge is rising so high they cannot touch you anymore." The room erupted in applause. Afterward, women came up to Maya one by one. They shared their stories. They thanked her. They cried. They hugged her. And Maya hugged them back, knowing that each of them was fighting a battle she understood. Late that evening, after the conference ended, Maya walked to her car in the parking lot. Hope was with Dolores tonight, giving Maya a rare evening to herself. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. For a moment, her heart stuttered. Unknown number still made her nervous, but she opened it anyway. "Congratulations on the conference. I saw the videos. You looked powerful up there. I always knew you were special. That is why I had to break you before you could break me. But you are stronger than I calculated. See you in 6 years." Miss Maya stared at the message. 6 years. That was when Marcus would be eligible for parole. For a moment, the old fear crept in. The cold feeling in her chest. The sense that he was still watching, still waiting, still planning. But then she thought about everything that had happened, everything she had survived, everything she had built. She thought about Hope, who was now a toddler with her mother's sharp eyes and her own fierce spirit. She thought about Starting Over, which had helped thousands of women find their way back from darkness. She thought about all the women who had told her tonight that her story had given them courage. And Maya did something she would not have been able to do a year ago. She forwarded the message to her lawyer, her security consultant, and the FBI agent who had handled the case. Then she typed a reply. "I have spent the last year building a life, Marcus, a real life, with people who love me, work that matters, and a daughter who knows exactly how strong her mother is. You spent the last year in a cell, probably thinking about revenge. So I will say this once, and then I am blocking this number. I am not afraid of you anymore. Not because you are not dangerous, but because I have already survived the worst thing you could do to me. You tried to erase me, and I became more visible than ever. You tried to break me, and I became stronger than you could imagine. So see me in 6 years? No, Marcus, I do not think I will, because I have already moved on, and you are just a chapter I finished writing. She pressed send. Then she blocked the number. She got in her car and sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel. Then she smiled. It was a real smile, full and warm and free. She started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. Tomorrow she would pick up Hope from Dolores. She would play with her daughter in the park. She would work on the new chapter of her book. She would live her life. And Marcus King, the man who had tried so hard to destroy her, would slowly fade into memory. Not forgotten, just irrelevant. That was the real victory, not justice or money or even success. It was the simple fact that she was free. Finally, completely, utterly free. The sun was setting over Atlanta as Maya drove home. The sky was painted in shades of gold and pink, the same colors that had filled the sky on the night of the wedding. But everything else was different now. She was different. And as she drove toward home, toward her daughter, toward the life she had built from the ashes of the one that burned, Maya Brooks knew one thing with absolute certainty. He had torn her dress to prove she was nothing. Instead, he had shown the world exactly who he was, and she had shown the world exactly who she was too. The woman who refused to disappear, the mother who fought for her child, the survivor who became a light for others. He meant to end her story that night. He did not know he was just starting it, and that is the story of Maya Brooks, the woman who walked into hell wearing a server uniform and walked out holding her freedom. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had someone try to break you, only to watch you rise? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And sometimes your story becomes the next video on this channel. Also, tell me where you are watching from today. Houston, London, Chicago, maybe somewhere I have never heard of? I love seeing how far these stories travel. If this story touched you, if it made you feel something, hit that like button. It costs you nothing, but it helps this video reach another woman who might need to hear it tonight. And if you are new here, welcome to the family. We tell stories about women who refuse to disappear, women who fight back, women who turn their worst moments into their greatest victories. So hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell because you do not want to miss what comes next. Until then, remember this, your story is not over. No matter how dark things seem right now, there is light waiting on the other side. Keep going. You are stronger than you know. See you in the next one.